everyone, and welcome back. Today I will be sharing with you my method for sowing very fine or very small seeds. Featured in this video will also be one of my favourite seed vendors, which is Sow Lithops. I've purchased from them a bunch of times, and the seed quality is amongst the best I've worked with. They're based in Australia, and they do ship internationally. However, with everything that's happening at the moment, there will more than likely be substantial postage delays. This is true even domestically within Australia, where postage times have become very long. YouTube policy does require me to tell you that yes, I will be featuring a business in this video. However, I am not receiving any benefit, financial or otherwise, from them. My decision to promote Sow Lithops is purely because I'm a personal fan of them. Just having a quick look at some footage now of me mid-shopping spree, which I went a little bit crazy on, ordering 32 different varieties of Lithops, Conophytum and Titanopsis. And for the full haul details, check out my other video, which is Sow Lithops Seed Haul Unboxing video. So that will be up shortly, if not already. Alright, now back to the topic. So I developed this method specifically for Lithops. However, it also works for Conophytum, Titanopsis and other genus of cacti and succulents with very small seeds. The seeds of Lithops and Conophytum are the smallest that I've worked with, and they're absolutely tiny compared to cactus seeds, with the exception of just a few. The inspiration for this method came from a post on a cactus forum. And in the post, the author was explaining their method for sowing Strombocactus Disciformis, which to my knowledge are the smallest cactus seeds, although Blossfeldia would also be a contender. I'd love to know though, what's the smallest cactus or succulent seeds you've worked with? I'm sure there's plenty more out there. So the issue that I had with my earlier method, the number one issue that I had was that the seeds were filtering down too deeply into the substrate, which affected germination rates and the health of those that did germinate, and the success rates weren't acceptable to me. Now, if I were to address just that issue alone, then I would require 2 substrate mixes, one for the young seedlings and then a second for when they were more mature. This option wasn't appealing to me, as it would mean I would need to repot the seedlings when they were about 6 months old. I'd prefer to leave them in the same pot for a full year undisturbed to enable the best root development. That being said, and knowing what I wanted from my substrate mix and my plans for the seedlings led me to what I guess can only be described as the tissue method. So for the soil mix, I'm going to be using potting soil. Now this is just regular potting soil. It is not cactus and succulent mix. I do not buy that. It's overpriced and it is not worth the money. So this is just the regular one that I've always used, and it's been put through a coarse sifter, which you can see now. Don't over sift it, because what will happen is that eventually the larger pieces will go through the sifter, which we don't want. We want the sort of fine to medium particles. The next ingredient is what would most likely be referred to as a pea gravel, and this is quartz. So these will have all irregular sizes, will assist with drainage and aeration and things like that. And then the next ingredient is an even finer gravel, and this is the result of putting a coarse sand, river sand, through a fine sifter. The last ingredient in the mix is perlite, and the grade is fine. It's a fine grade. So those are the 4 ingredients that I'm going to be using for these seeds. So let's mix it all up, and we'll have a look at what the end product looks like. What we'll be left with is a nice irregular mix, and by irregular what I mean is that the different particle sizes. So the more irregular that the particle sizes are, the more that this will increase drainage and aeration of the soil as well. Remembering that plastic pots don't breathe, only through the top and the bottom. So what you want is you want to make sure that the mix is breathable, and also that it's well draining. And if you're doing that for very small seeds, then what you're going to want is smaller particle sizes, but you still need that irregular sizing, and that will work best for your seedlings. So there it is there. It's a nice mix. It's very gravelly, little organic matter, but there's plenty of sustenance in there for the baby seedlings. So now that all the punnets have been filled with the substrate mix, I'm then going to go ahead and add the single layer of tissue, as you can see now, and this is what's going to form our physical barrier between the seeds and the substrate mix. But of course, tissue is soft enough that it will not stop the roots from growing into the substrate mix. It just basically stops the seeds from falling, but does not prevent the formation of roots or from the roots actually making their way into the substrate. The next step is now to add the top dressing, and the top dressing that I'm going to be using is the smallest grade gravel that we used in the actual soil mix itself, and it's very, very fine. As I mentioned, the best way to find this would be to buy coarse river sand and then manually sift it yourself, and you would be using a fine sifter, one that you might make a cake with. So the very fine wire ones are the ones that you're after, and that'll get out all of the fine particles, but it will leave the little miniature particles in the sifter. You might need to do two grades of sifting, so one through a coarse sifter and then one through the finer sifter, just to make sure that you've got a fairly uniform top dressing. Adding some water to the punnets and making sure that they're very well hydrated, because the little seeds are going to need lots of moisture to kick things off. So I water from the bottom to make sure that there's a full soaking. In future, I will only water from the top. I don't water from the bottom because it's impractical for the amount of plants that I have. So I just water over the top. So we'll sprinkle the top dressing on, and the beauty of doing it this way, as opposed to after the seeds, is that if you don't get the depth right, then you can tinker with it and just gently push the gravel to the side to see how deep you're actually working with, and I'm aiming for a 1 to 2 grain thickness at most. One is usually more than sufficient. For very tiny seeds, you might do away with the top dressing entirely, but I haven't really trialed that too much. I only trialed that with Strombocactus Disciformis, but I actually think that the top dressing might have been useful in that case, but I don't have conclusive results as yet.